It's early in the season, but I'll explain why there's a sense of panic already around the Pelicans and what's the most fixable things to get back on track. It's the Wednesday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with you on this Wednesday, a game day for your Pelicans as they take on the Denver Nuggets, first game of a 3-game road trip. Could be make or break, because look, there is a sense of panic around this team. I feel it. You feel it. I can guarantee you the team feels it somewhat. Media feels it. And that panic is justified. And I'll explain for one specific reason why in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. But look, they need to make some changes. We talked about that in yesterday's show, and they haven't. So we're going to look at what they can try and fix with what they have right now. That's going to be the second and third segment of today's episode. We'll look at the offense, the defense. What are the things they can do to kind of change their fortunes here? And there's actually some good news in there. Will they do it? Different story, but there's reasons for optimism. So we'll get into all of that and more in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. Become an everydayer. It means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. And also, you can watch us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every single weekday at 10:30 a.m. So after the real bad loss, there's no way to sugarcoat it, against the Boston Celtics, playing on the second night of a back-to-back, travel back-to-back, Pelicans rested, no Zion Williamson already. There's a sense of panic here. Now, there's reasons for optimism. We'll get into that. But there's a sense of panic. There needs to be a sense of urgency. And there is around the team, whether it's fans, whether it's other media, and from talking to people around the team, they feel it as well. There's a lot of pressure on this season. And the main reason for that is this. The clock is ticking. The clock is ticking on this iteration of the New Orleans Pelicans. By this iteration, it means Zion Williamson. The Pelicans are attempting two timelines to make it work around Zion, but also kind of building for the future behind Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen. And both those guys have looked pretty good, but at times they've also just looked like rookies. Jeremiah Fears, 1 of 11 from the field in that game against the Boston Celtics. He looked like a rookie. When you're trying to win now, and the Pelicans traded away their future first-round pick in that Derek Queen deal, means they're trying to win now. When you double down on building around Zion Williamson, you're trying to win now. This is the start of year 7 for Zion. This is no more rebuilding. This is when you're supposed to be competitive and doing all of that. You could have had patience before. You don't now. And the clock is ticking because of that. If it doesn't work this year, you have to make a choice. And this is something the everydayers have heard me say a lot this offseason. The Pelicans have a 2-timeline approach, but you're going to need to pick one of those 2 timelines. They are not quite at the crossroads yet. The crossroads will truly be the NBA trade deadline. But if it's not working, you need to sell off parts. You need to start planning for the future and those guys that you're going to build around for the future. And that is not Zion Williamson. It should be Trey Murphy. It should be Herb Jones, but it might not be those guys either. It'll be your 2 first-round picks, your 2 lottery picks in Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen. And here's kind of the issue and why there's a sense of panic, in my opinion, about this. We've seen the rushed rebuild. We saw it around Anthony Davis. We've kind of seen it around Zion Williamson, where you get these guys who are like, let's go fast, right? Anthony Davis, they thought was going to help them compete quicker than a normal rookie does, which is about 3 years, truthfully. It's about their third year. So the first 2 years are rough, and they don't contribute to winning. Then the third year, they often take a leap. That's general. But with Anthony Davis, they wanted to do it earlier. So they traded away future first-round pick after future first-round pick, and it just never worked. You never got quite the running mate, the true running mate from Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis never really developed into the guy that could carry you himself, too. There's something there as well. So it led to them just not being able to kind of build organically, forcing a rebuild, forcing to trying to be competitive. And what did it lead to? You got one sweep in the first round. That was cool, but no true real sense of competitiveness from this team. No defining era that you would call it, like say the grit and grind Memphis Grizzlies. In the Zion Williamson era here, what do you have to show for it? You have 2 playoff wins in a series he didn't play in. You have no playoff games from Zion Williamson. At a certain point, you need to rebuild and then take it slower. But you've already kind of shot yourself in the foot with that a little bit. You don't have a lottery pick next year. So it's not like if you trade away Zion and you go through the rebuild, cool, we'll keep slowly adding to the core of Jeremiah Fears, Derek Queen, grow organically and build these guys up. You're kind of already behind the 8 ball of that. So you're not going to be competitive this year, and you're not going to truly get the pieces you need to continue to build from the ground up in the future. That's kind of the worst of both worlds here. And Joe Dumars said on draft night, if we want another lottery pick, we can get another lottery pick. But you're going to have to overpay for that. And it comes to managing your assets well. And the Pelicans, at least under Joe Dumars so far, and I talked about this in yesterday's show, with DeAndre Jordan's contract being fully guaranteed for, truthfully, I cannot comprehend the reason why. You could have just gotten anybody else, because is he going to play as the season goes on? And the answer is probably not going to be yes. Even though we'll talk about him a little bit in the third segment here when it comes to defense and certain things. It means you're doing both of these timelines poorly, and you need to commit to one and just do it well. You probably can't do the one where you're building around Zion truthfully well by adding pieces that help you win now because you just traded away a future first-round pick. Rookies don't help you win now. I'm a huge Jeremiah Fears fan. I will be buying a Jeremiah Fears jersey. Like Derek Queen as well. I think he's one of the more unique big men. You've seen flashes from both of them, but then you get in a winnable game against Boston and they look like rooks. That's why there's a sense of panic here. It's panic that this season's not going to accomplish anything, and it's not going to then help you build on that second timeline, the young timeline, the rebuild timeline, because you don't have next year's pick to add to your core that you're starting to, build here. That's part of the problem. That's why there's a real panic of do something now. If you were building for the future, if you had next year's future first round pick, keep Willie Green. Doesn't matter. You lose games, cool. It improves your draft pick. He's playing the young guys. There's something for that here. They're getting valuable minutes, learning experiences. But what good does losing do here? It doesn't do anything good, and it starts to reinforce bad habits on some of these players. Losing is a disease. It is contagious. I have long said this. The everydayers are probably tired of hearing me say it. I'm tired of saying it. You don't want to keep losing because then they just kind of get accustomed to it and it's whatever. None of this matters. And that's not what you want your young players to think, to feel. That's why it feels like the clock is ticking here. This is the last go around to make it work around Zion Williamson because you've started that other timeline. You're eventually going to need to get to it. You may as well get to it sooner rather than later. But if Zion was helping you win, cool, keep doing both as long as you can. Win some games, have some fun, make the fans happy here. But off to an 0-3 start with Zion not playing. And look, he gave an update, which is actually somewhat encouraging. He doesn't often speak to the media when he's hurt. He spoke to the media after practice, didn't really go through a full practice, but was sprinting around pretty well after practice saying, it happened in the Spurs game on a putback dunk, landed on someone's foot hit the ground, feels kind of weird. Doesn't seem like it's anything serious. It's day to day. He's literally listed as questionable for tonight's game. That's his injury designation. Doesn't sound like it's a massive, massive thing. And the fact that he kind of owned up and wanted to talk, I thought was a highly encouraging thing when he normally doesn't do that. Look, that's some growth right there. But it's got to translate to production on the court, and it hasn't so far. An 0-3 with a really tough 3-game road trip coming up, the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Thunder, where you're staring 0-6 in the face in a really tough Western Conference isn't encouraging for the direction of this team. That's why it feels like there's a sense of panic. If you had next year's first-round pick, I'd be like, you know what? Play the rooks, trade some guys, build up the war chest again, and we'll get a good draft pick, and we'll switch to draft coverage in March and all that. You can't do that now. That's the position the Pelicans have put themselves in. And so you've got to do something about it to try and salvage the situation. You're in triage mode already, and it's disappointing that it's this early, but that's the reality of the situation. So let's triage it for them, right? Let's be doctors, nurse, whatever it is. Let's fix some things. The good news is a lot of things are fixable, and I'm going to tell you what those are coming up over the next 2 segments in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that helps make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so you don't need to carry around 2 phones anymore, or even rely on a landline, which, and I love how Quo, formerly OpenPhone, lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts like a shared inbox so no customer gets left hanging. They also have a built-in AI agent, which is a game changer. It can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you're off the clock. So whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay positive, responsive and professional. See why 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. And if you got an existing number with another service, Quo will port them over at no charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is also brought to you by Rippling. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's SAD. Software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. I love that Rippling removes the bottlenecks that just are busy work, which slow your team down. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. And it's just simple to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. So whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance departments as one, or just fill the gaps in where your software fill in the gaps of your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now, you get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonnba. Learn more at rippling.com/lockedonnba. That's rippling.com/lockedonnba for 6 months free. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join us on YouTube as well. Over 12,000 Pelicans fans. And don't forget, you can watch us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network at 10:30 a.m. every single weekday. If you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. So let's get into what can this team do? The good news is a lot of the stuff that you're seeing from them is really fixable. And I want to go into one stat here, right? Let's look at the offense first. Here's where there's one thing that jumps out to me that they can immediately start to fix that's going to make you feel better about this team. Right now, the Pelicans are basically the worst shooting team in the league. They're 29th when it comes to field goal percentage, 41.2%. They are 28th in terms of three-point percentage, 30.5%. They're also really low in terms of three-point attempts at just under 32 attempts per game. They're missing shots is what this is saying. But here's the thing. They have a very good shot profile. There's a stat, and this comes from cleaningtheglass.com, called location effective field goal percentage, LOKE field goal percentage here. If the team shot league average field goal percentage from each location, which is rim, short mid, long mid, corner three, non-corner three, what would their effective field goal percentage be? An effective field goal percentage adjusts from the fact that threes are worth more than twos. So adding the extra point from three, what did the team effectively shoot from the field? 50% from two is the equivalent of 33.33% from three. So you factor that in here. They're both worth 1 point that way. Location field goal percentage, right, compares kind of if you were just a decent shooting team, you don't even have to be good, where would you rank? And here's the thing with this. The Pelicans would be 7th based off of location effective field goal percentage. They're just shooting dramatically below it. Their location effective field goal percentage is 55.5%. They're shooting, their field goal percentage is 46.9%. It's terrible. It's the worst in the league. what this says is their shot selection is good. When you break down where they are shooting from, they're taking the 7th most attempts from the rim, the 8th most attempts from the short mid-range. So that's in the paint, essentially, which is fine. They're 28th in terms of frequency from long mid-range, so 14 feet to the three-point line. That's good. You don't want to take those shots. Those are out of their shot diet, essentially. That's just 4.2% of their field goal attempts here. That's a really good number. Mid-range are middle of the pack because they're taking a lot in the paint there. That's, again, fine. The three-point percentage is not great. They're 22nd. They rank 22nd in the league. Just under 33% of their attempts come from three. But if they were just making their shots, this offense would look significantly better. They're 30th in half-court offense right now, and it's just simply because they can't make shots. They've actually done a very good job of not turning the ball over. They're one of the top teams in terms of that. They're 7th best in terms of not turning the ball over. They're just missing shots that they basically should be making. If you look at this over the course of a season, you would expect something called regression to the mean, right? That can go down to the mean or up to the mean. Pelicans need some of that right now. When you look at their three-point shooters and guys who are kind of doing it in volume, it's not particularly great, right? Trey Murphy is shooting 22.2% from three on 6 attempts per game. Jeremiah Fears is taking 2 attempts per game and hasn't made one of them. Jose Alvarado, I said in the offseason, one of his roles was be a shooter, 25% from three. But Herb Jones is at 35.7%. That's a nice little rebound from him on almost 5 attempts per game. Jordan Hawkins, 37.5%. Jordan Poole, 37.5%. Sadiq Bey is shooting almost 44% from three. If you get Poole shooting a little bit better, if you get Trey Murphy shooting a little bit better, all of a sudden these numbers start to look very, very different. The team will make more buckets. And then all of a sudden this team's offense looks significantly better than it was. And they probably would have won some games. They're doing a very poor job in spot-up shooting situations. Those are the easiest type of threes and shots to make. If the shots start falling, they're just going to win games. This is where my job's kind of easy. Any of y'all could be up here kind of saying what I'm about to say next. It's because it's a cliche. Sometimes it's just a make or miss league, and the Pelicans are missing shots right now. Simple as that. Make shots. It shouldn't. Trey Murphy, look, has not played great in my opinion. I agree with y'all, but he's not going to shoot 22.2% from three for the season. He's not going to shoot below 35% from three for the season when we get past 3 total games here where the numbers are just really, really low. Trey Murphy is 4 for 18 from three. But if he's 6 of 18, all of a sudden you're in the 30s there, right? It looks a whole lot different all of a sudden. That's 33.3%, right? That's 2 more made threes. If he made 3 of them, this number is closer to 40% all of a sudden, and you're feeling better about Trey Murphy. So this is very fixable for this team. Jordan Poole has been a flamethrower from deep recently. He'll be okay there too, right? Zion Williamson, who's shooting very poorly at the rim, isn't going to continue to shoot very poorly at the rim like he has all season long. Right now at the rim, he's shooting 61%. That's actually like a decent enough number overall, but not for Zion Williamson, and compare him to like other players down below. That would be the lowest of his career. Last year, he shot 68% from the rim. When these guys just simply start making shots, Jeremiah Fears kind of getting into the flow a little bit more, the offense will get better. I actually think the offense, the movement, the actions have looked pretty good. The team's just not converting. Simple as that. They need to make shots. And I trust these guys to figure some of that out. So when you look at the offense, which again, bad right now, it should be okay. It should at least even out. Looking at some of the stats after just 3 games and in the small sample size that we have right now, it's going to make things look worse when people are like, oh, they have the worst offense in the league. Literally 1 made shot can be the difference between like the worst offense in the league and like 15th right now. So it's small sample size theater a little bit, and you've got to keep that in mind. Will certain things dramatically change? We'll get into some of the stuff on defense. No, I don't think the rebounding is going to get particularly better, but I do trust that shooters will make shots. And I think you'll see that change, start to happen here. The other good news is as the defense maybe improves, they can get out in transition and run a little bit more. They've been very good in transition, ranking in the top quarter of the league with all of that. So they can improve in those areas, I think. And so you see a lot of room to grow, basically saying it shouldn't get worse, They've not been a good pick and roll team, partially because right now they're just not making shots, even though they should. Their shooting at the rim is just so abysmal. Let me pull up the accuracy numbers here. The Pelicans are third worst in the league in terms of rim shooting percentage at 57.9%. League leaders, by the way, are the Clippers at 83.3%. They play this team soon. And OKC, who's in the top 5 too. Great. If you just get that number up again to league average here, so like 15th in the league, that's a near 10% jump for New Orleans. That'd be 66.2%. The Pelicans can get there, I think. And I think that's what's kind of encouraging about this. They should not remain this bad all season long, because that's just not what this team is. And it hasn't been in the past. So if you look at kind of the past as predictor of what they're going to be this year, I think this will improve. That'll make everything better, including the defense. Let's look at that next, coming up here in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with a brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. And I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching, actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, corrects your form, makes everything safer and smarter. If you're new to weightlifting, you don't know what to do, you're worried about hurting yourself, this is a great way to get active feedback and just make doing it safer. The swivel screen, by the way, too, a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat, and the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. That is onepeloton.com. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. Means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. If you're not an everydayer, it's okay. If you listen one day a week, that's fine. Try making it twice. You can double up here. We're going to be covering everything you want to know. I've got access to Synergy Sports this year, bringing you stats and insight on kind of the X's and O's that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else. I've got access to all of the game film and everything like that the coaches literally get to use, and all of the stats that come with it to help us identify trends, look at areas. It's something I've been using in the analysis so far, will continue to use in the analysis throughout the season. So there's going to be a lot of insight here on Locked On Pelicans. For your second listen, someone who provides great insight, it's Ross Jackson with the Locked On Saints podcast. Tyler Shook is the new QB. It is official. Make Locked On Saints your second listen today. What are they going to do there? Is that going to change things? What to expect from him? Ross Jackson's going to be making sense of everything black and gold. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we just went over how the offense can get better. It's like literally just make your shots. There's some good news too when it comes to the defense. Their half-court defense has actually been, I don't want to say good because it's not good, but it has been not bad. The Pelicans, I think, have done a decent enough job of in the half-court, limiting teams here. Where do they rank in the half court? They're 13th. They're in the top half of the league. That's actually pretty good, I think. Part of the problem is they're not letting teams play more in the half court. They actually, in terms of opponents, like percentage of plays in the half court, rank 5th worst in the league. So they're not forcing teams into the half court. That then means teams are getting in transition and running against New Orleans. And this has been one of the most concerning things. Pelicans are allowing the 3rd most transition opportunities in the league this year. Basically, it's 20%. A 5th of opponents' offense is in transition opportunities. That's gonna kill you. The Pelicans need to do better with this, and it comes down to a couple of areas. One, it comes down to stopping the ball. Just stop the ball. Teams are running after makes, which is what's so concerning. You've heard me say a lot of the time, good defense can be helped by offense because you make your shots, the opponent needs to inbound it. Your defense can get back and get set. Even if the Pelicans are making shots, teams are running off misses. That's just an effort thing. That's a lackadaisical thing. That is a player's thing. Coaches tell them to get back on that. They're just not doing it. It's not like you can bench everybody. That needs to be a pride thing. That's something the Pelicans need to do a significantly better job on. And that's why I say in the show here, if you're watching it on the notes, it's a work in progress right now. They need to force teams into the half court more because they're doing a really good job there. They're forcing turnovers. That lets them get out and run and avoid some of the half court offense. And we just went over, they're pretty good in transition this year. They're also very good at forcing turnovers. They're 14th best in that. They're in the top half of the league with all of that. They need to do more of this. But because they're not stopping the ball, teams are scoring on them, they don't get a chance to force a turnover. The other area is going to be defensive rebounding here. And this is a little bit of a catch-22. Pelicans are currently the second worst defensive rebounding team in the league. They're only rebounding 66.4% of opponents' misses. Bad number. Second worst in the league here. You can commit more guys to rebounding, team rebounding, and try and terminate those possessions. Defensive rebounding is defense. But if you do that, you can't get out in transition and run as much. One of the reasons why teams kind of, are committing to getting those boards, you'll secure it, but now all your guys are below the basket. The opponent has gotten back after a missed shot and you can't run against them. That's not an ideal situation for this team to be in. They need to find the right balance of this. Maybe it's DeAndre Jordan. I'm skeptical, but I didn't think he played terribly the other night. We'll see. Defense is a work in progress. Offense can get fixed pretty quickly. That's the big takeaway here on Locked On Pelicans. There's reasons for optimism, but there needs to be a sense of panic, a sense of urgency. Something's got to be different because of the two timelines approach that we talked about in the opening part of the show. That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll be back tomorrow to recap it. This is Locked On Pelicans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.